Rain-slicked streets reflected the flickering streetlights like shards of broken dreams, and Claire Thompson's trembling hands clutched a worn suitcase as she stepped out into the storm. Her eyes, red-rimmed from crying for hours, scanned the darkened streets of a small town in Ohio. She had promised herself she would leave, escape the turmoil that had haunted her family for years, and finally breathe. But just as she stepped toward the curb, a shadow moved before her, a solid presence that stopped her in her tracks. It was Mark Reynolds, the single dad who lived 2 blocks over, known in the neighborhood for his quiet strength and unwavering care for his own little girl. Mark's hand reached for hers, not to stop her in anger, but to offer protection from the storm raging outside and the one within her heart. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and the quiet heroism of everyday people, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel now. Claire's life had never been easy, but the past few years had tested her in ways she could never have imagined. Her marriage, once filled with laughter and shared dreams, had crumbled under the weight of betrayal, financial stress, and constant fear. The very house that had been her sanctuary became a cage of whispered threats and tense silences. She loved her children fiercely, but the constant tension wore her down, leaving her exhausted and teetering on the edge of despair. Tonight, the final straw had come, the moment she could no longer endure. She had packed a small bag for herself and her 2 young children, determined to leave before anyone could stop her. Mark had known Claire for years, seeing her struggle from afar, offering a quiet smile at the park, lending a hand when groceries fell, or giving a gentle nod of encouragement during school pickups. But he had never imagined the depth of pain she carried until tonight. As the wind howled around them, he didn't speak. Words were inadequate, but he stood, firm in her path, a living barrier against the chaos that had been following her. His presence was not intimidation, it was solidarity, a lifeline that promised, without saying it, that she would not have to face the storm alone. Claire's heart pounded, caught between the instinct to flee and the inexplicable sense of safety she felt near Mark. Memories of the nights she had spent crying in her bedroom while her children slept quietly beside her resurfaced. She had thought she was protecting them by leaving, but now doubt clawed at her chest. Could running away really save them, or would it just carry the pain to a new place? Mark's steady eyes met hers, and in them she saw understanding, patience, and an unwavering willingness to fight, not against her but for her. As the rain intensified, Mark guided them under the small awning of his porch. He didn't force conversation, didn't pry. He simply offered a warm blanket, hot cocoa in chipped mugs, and the quiet reassurance that for tonight, at least, they were safe. The children clung to him shyly, sensing his protective presence, and for the first time in hours, Claire felt a spark of hope flicker in her chest. It was a fragile flame, but it reminded her that she wasn't alone, that someone else could share the burden of fear and despair. The hours stretched into the night, filled with soft whispers and the occasional giggle from the children as they discovered a box of old board games in Mark's living room. Claire watched, stunned by how quickly a space could transform from a shelter into a haven, simply because someone believed in them. She realized that her instinct to run had been fueled by isolation as much as fear. With Mark's intervention, she saw a different path, not one free from pain, but one in which they could face it together. In the days that followed, Mark became a steady presence in their lives. He helped Claire find resources for emotional support, connected her with a local women's center, and even assisted in arranging legal guidance to ensure her safety. The children, once burdened by the tension that had permeated their home, began to smile again, discovering the simple joys of normal childhood, puddle jumping after rain, bedtime stories read aloud with exaggerated voices, and baking cookies that always seemed to burn just enough to be funny. Claire, though still fragile, felt herself slowly regaining her strength. The walls she had built around her heart started to crumble, replaced by a cautious trust in another human being's goodness. There were nights when doubt crept back, and memories of the trauma she'd endured threatened to pull her under. But Mark remained constant, never judgmental, always protective. His own struggles as a single father lent him a unique empathy, and he never asked her to be anything but herself. Through his actions, Claire learned that courage wasn't just in leaving, it was in facing the messiness of life with someone by your side, in allowing herself to lean on another without shame. Months passed, and while the future was still uncertain, a quiet resilience grew within Claire. She saw her children laughing freely, a sound that had been foreign in their home for so long, and it filled her with a gratitude she could barely put into words. The small acts of kindness, the unwavering support, and the belief that people could be good again made her life richer and brighter than she had dared to hope. Mark never sought recognition or praise. He simply continued being a shield when needed and a friend when wanted. The neighborhood watched quietly, witnessing the transformation of a family once on the brink of despair into one that dared to dream of stability and love again. Claire understood that leaving was not always the answer. Sometimes the answer was finding the right person who would stand in the storm beside you, even when you felt like breaking apart. If this story touched your heart, please engage with this video. Like, share, comment, and subscribe. Let others know that kindness, courage, and a helping hand can change lives in ways we can hardly imagine. And if you felt moved by this story, please leave a comment sharing what hope or inspiration you carry with you today. Claire's tear-streaked face was now framed with a tentative smile, the children's laughter filling the rooms that once echoed with silence and fear. The storm had not disappeared, it never truly does, but it no longer felt unbearable. With Mark's quiet heroism behind her, she learned that no one had to face life's battles alone. Hope could be found in the most unexpected places, and love, even when delayed, could heal wounds that seemed impossible to mend. And sometimes all it takes is one steady hand, one unwavering heart, to block the trouble behind us and guide us forward into the light.